G'day! Welcome to True Blue History. I'm Adam Blum. Welcome back to part 2 of our 2-part episode with former Australian combat engineer, author, Paralympian gold medalist and world champion Curtis McGrath. If you haven't listened to part 1, go back and listen to part 1 before listening to part 2. We previously learned of Curtis's near-death experiences with a landmine in Afghanistan that cost him his legs. In part 2, we speak with Curtis about his road to recovery, not just physically, but mentally. Through his passion for sport, Curtis approached every setback and challenge with courage, resilience, humour, grit, and determination. This saw him compete in 2 Paralympic Games where he won several gold medals. His is a truly inspiring story. Lest we forget all those who made the ultimate sacrifice, and thank you to all our ADF personnel who have served and defended our country. How important did Adine, Curran and Jans Bofeld play in helping you in your recovery?
Jens, he is a Namibian German guy, so he's very sort of down the wire, sort of straight shooting guy, but a really lovely man who's become a really good friend. And I first met him after, I think, my last surgery. I just had like a little bit of infection in my leg that I needed drained out and cleaned. And that was sort of midway through my hospital time. And I remember meeting him, and he was just like, all right, you know, the surgeon's done such a great job on your legs. We should be able to, you know, work with this. Rachel, before that, had actually looked up all these different prosthetics and what was on offer and all the different types and blades and blah. The list was massive. But Jens made it all come together and in this sort of like this realistic sort of talk, how it actually applies to me or to the patient, and how you fit it in the phases of different parts of the prosthetic to be up walking, and where I should be focusing on my rehab, and so on. So there was a bit of, you know, unknown, which Jens was able to sort of help me figure out, or sort of give me the information. And he said, you know, watch this little DVD, and it was just all the little things that help, you know, skin, how your skin should be, and you know, where you should be strong in your back and your core and things like that. So all those little things helps. So, but then when I got down to Sydney to actually get fitted, so Adine was doing my left leg, my below the knee amputation, and then Jens was doing my right above the knee amputation, which has a prosthetic knee, which is a little bit more sophisticated, but is actually a simpler fit, but it's just because it was all new technology and whatnot. But that was something that they were very much a team, and they built it together, and they, you know, would cross over the different challenges or things that they needed to figure out. And when I was getting fitted for the prosthetics, you know, I thought I'd just go there and put the legs on, stand up and walk out. It was going to be a piece of cake. But in actual fact, I had a lot of nerve issues on my left leg, and my left leg just became like, I was so annoyed. It was just a situation where I was what's the word? I was trying to be optimistic, but I just couldn't see. Like, I was so pissed off that I was not able to do what I thought I could do. And because of the nerves, the pain was so excruciating. I probably only walk 100 meters and then I was done for the whole day. The fatigue as well, because using little muscles to walk is really hard to try and get those muscles to do what you want them to do until they're, you know, used to doing it. And, you know, it takes a lot of time. You know, it took like a proper year, I reckon, for me to be moving around easily. But the nerves was something that was stopping me completely. And I had to, I went away with these prosthetics, tried to do some rehab with them, and realized like 2 weeks in, I was like, this is impossible. I can't do this. I have to go back down and get refitted. And they, instead of like one prosthetist doing one side and the other prosthetist doing the other, they both focused on the one leg, and just the little tiny, like 1% changes within the socket made it possible for me to not have that pain. It was just, I was feeling the bone on the bottom of the socket, and that was just flicking over the nerves, and obviously they're not used to taking that weight and that pressure. So it meant that I literally stood up and was like, this is what it's meant to be like. Like, yeah, I'm fatiguing, but I'm not in pain, which is, exactly what it was. And Jens and Nadine did an amazing job, and the technology that I'm currently walking on is pretty incredible.
So, how important was it for you to be able to meet your mates at the airport after they'd come back from Afghanistan? And can you share with us what it meant for you to take part in the Welcome Home Parade?
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, being at the plane door when the guys got home was a goal, and that's what helped me, push and drive myself to be better when I got back, or when they got back, and it gave me a goal, gave me a focus point, and I was very driven because of that. And then meeting them back at the plane, it was really special and really cool to see them again, because last time I saw them, I wasn't sure if I'd ever see them again. Same for them, for me, of me, and being able to achieve that was something that was really special. And I felt like, oh shit, like goals are actually really important, and they make a lot of sense for to help push and drive. And then then I got the opportunity to march in the Welcome Home Parade. And the Welcome Home Parade is what all deployments do. They all, do the thing. You do a welcome home for sort of a ceremony, and that was something that I wanted to be a part of, because then it gave me this great sense of closure, this feeling that I'd completed my mission, and I could do it with the guys in which I deployed with, and that was really special. And being able to march, that was in that phase when I was still having the pain with the nerves, so I had to be supported to walk, and it was, but still, it was a very special moment for me, and I hope my mates and everyone that was there. It was a really cool moment to do.
Absolutely. And in the book, you talk about, and it's a chapter, and you said legs fixed, heart broken. Can you tell us, you and Rachel separated and obviously got back together again later on down the track, but how crucial of a moment was this in your recovery process, and what drove you to find a new love? And now it's not love, it was with a woman, it was love of a sport.
It was obviously a pretty heartbreaking. Me and Rach, we just went on a little bit of a break, and it was because we were both in different countries. She was still studying medicine at the time in New Zealand, and needing to focus on that. And we just saw ourselves sort of drifting apart from each other. As much as we loved each other, we just couldn't see any way to make it work in our current situation. And I guess that sort of that break, or that separation, meant that we could both focus on things that we were passionate about. And for me, it was something that I needed to find another goal, another purpose, and sport was something for me. And Rach was obviously doing her medicine. But then, so the sport situation, as I said, it was my purpose. It was something I could get up in the morning and feel like I could do. It was something that I knew it was good for me. I knew it was helping for my rehab, but also it was helping mentally, gave me an engagement, meaningful situations where I could, throw myself into, body, mind, and soul. And later on, obviously me and Rach got back together, and that was because, we sort of had stabilized our situation, and we could see, an opportunity to be together, and that's sort of what happened there. And that was obviously an up and down time, as everyone understands relationships, but at the same time, it was allowing us to focus on what we needed to do. And so I started to think about sport, and what sport. I tried swimming, I tried wheelchair basketball, I tried athletics, archery, and I tried kayaking, and that was something that I'd obviously done it at high school, and I really loved. And I knew, well, I didn't know, but I had a bit of an understanding that, you know, to be an elite athlete, you have to commit so much time and energy into it. So I wanted to pick something that I enjoyed, and kayaking was, excuse me, one of those things. So that was what drew me to it. And I had a really amazing coach, and she was able to sort of give me all the fundamentals of it, and help me with pushing through, and seeing that I had the potential, which was, I think, the most important part. That's what Andrea did for me. That was my coach. Yeah.
So in the book, you mentioned that you wanted to compete at the Paralympics for New Zealand, but ended up competing for Australia. Can you tell us how this unfolded and how you felt about that?
Yeah, so I trialed with the New Zealand para canoe team, and they said, "Oh yeah, you've got sort of what we're after." You know, I had a lot of learning to do, hell of a lot of learning to do. I could barely balance the boat. I could just paddle it. My technique was a little bit average, but at the same time, I had sort of the fundamentals there from when I was at high school. And they said, "Yeah, we're like, you're in the area, in the zone where we want, but in because you're going to live in Australia, there isn't going to be any funding support for you. You're going to have to like fund your own gym, fund your coach, and then also fund the flights to and from New Zealand for trials and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Damn, it's going to be an expensive endeavor." And I could have probably afforded it, but I wouldn't have been able to afford much else. So that was something I had to really think about, if what it meant to me to wear the New Zealand uniform at sport level. And you know, it took me a good sort of month and a half, 2 months to decide, you know, weigh it all up. And I remember telling my coach, you know, this is what I'd like to do, Andrea. And she was like, "Well, you know, like, Australia's going to offer all this. You have gyms, you have coaches, you have, you know, training facilities, plus Australia has a program." New Zealand had one athlete, so it wasn't really a program. It was just like one guy doing his thing. And Scott is the New Zealand athlete. He's very good, and he's one of my main competitors. And he was actually, now he's one of my main competitors, but he was in a different class at that time. So I never saw him as a competitor until recently, but after I'd established myself. But it was just something that, you know, I had to weigh up, you know, where did my allegiance lie and all that sort of thing. So, but, you know, I don't regret my decision at all. It was just something that I had to come to terms with, about not representing New Zealand in sport was something that, growing up in New Zealand and being sort of forced from a very young age to support the All Blacks, it makes you quite patriotic for the New Zealand sporting team. So, but at the same time, I was pretty keen to do the best and be supported by an organisation that would help me achieve my goals, and that was Australia, and then that's why I picked to wear the green and gold.
So you also became involved in the Invictus Games, and how has that helped you? And describe the moment when you first met Prince Harry, because he was the person who created the Invictus Games.
That's right. Yeah. Sport became a vehicle for recovery, both you know, on the sports field and off, and it gave me this feeling that I was able to participate. I was able to achieve things, and as I said, it gave me a purpose and meaningful engagement, and that was something that was very integral to me, feeling as though I was capable and able to do things. And the Invictus Games is about that. It's about, you know, bringing people together with similar injuries and illnesses, and using sport as a vehicle for recovery. And that was something that was very, as I said, important to my rehab, and the Invictus Games was that. So being involved with that, it was really special. It also showed me that other people out there like me were still able and out there doing things that I thought were not possible anymore. But the meeting with Prince Harry was interesting. I was the captain of actually I'd met him before Invictus Games. He came over for the centenary of the Australian Navy, and I got to meet him there. But that was not necessarily the same sort of interaction, because he was very much accessible to all the athletes and the families for at the Invictus Games. So if he was about, you go up and talk to him and get a photo. And he was so so just casual, and it was it's really nice to be around someone of that significance and that sort of profile, to be that sort of humble, which was it's cool.
So for you and other veterans, Curtis, do you believe that the Invictus Games, it gives veterans a sense of purpose again, and a sense that after they've left the military, and it sort of helps them with their healing process of what they're going through and what they've been through?
100%. And for the reasons I just pointed out, but also I think the main one I said before was seeing people who had been through similar situations achieve and excel, and that was something that was very much an obvious, well, maybe not so obvious, but a feeling that there are opportunities and times where people can come together and feel like they can do these things. And whether you're an amputee or a combat, being gunshot wounds, or if you've got post-traumatic stress, is the people there. And that's one of those really good things about being involved with the games, for sure.
So who inspires you, and who are your role models now and going into the future?
Role models. I think Kurt Fernley would have to be one. He's a legend on the sporting field, and then more importantly off it. He is able to articulate messages that are very difficult to talk about, especially with disability and things like that. You see his pieces on the ABC, I think it's called 1+1, and that. And he's a really humble and an amazing man who has achieved a lot and given so much, opportunity in helping people realize that you can't really be held back by a wheelchair, and obviously varying degrees of disability mean you can do things and can't. But by saying that, it's not saying you can't do anything. It's just you have different ways of doing it. And I think that Kurt's a great example of that. But he's flat out all around nice bloke too, which is always good. Not really sure who else. Obviously there's a lot of people around me that are pretty special to me, and especially my wife and what she's had to deal with. And she's an ICU doctor, and obviously with the whole COVID situation, that's a bit of a rough one. So so just working hard and doing the best they can at every moment, and that's pretty special to watch and observe.
Absolutely. And we should talk about your 2016 Rio and your first gold, and what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it was a very special medal or event, because on the stretcher when I was getting carried out of Afghanistan, I said to the guys that I would go to the Paralympics, and I managed to get there, and that was something that I was very proud of. And I was proud because I was able to get there with the support with so many people, and they're the ones that helped me get there, and feel like I was capable and supported, and had the resources and the motivation to get everything I needed to get there firstly. And that was the main thing. That was the main goal. But then to stand on top of the podium was a moment where I was super honored, and it didn't really I didn't realize that, well, not realize, I didn't feel as though the medal was the achievement. I felt like being there was the achievement, and that was a really special moment. But also at the games, crossing the line, I had this, not what I expected. I expected to feel like joy and celebration, But what I got was this huge wave of relief, and that was something that I was I was not ready for. It was just like this physical wave just came over top of me, and I felt, thankful that's over. But at the same time, I was really, really relieved that I'd achieved it, not just for myself, but everyone that was supported me along the way.
Well, I think, Curtis, what it is and what you're describing is that all the journey that you'd been on up until that point, and from what happened in 2012, it was the hard work and the determination of not giving up, and like so many people, when they're faced with an obstacle, some people either choose to they choose to accept it, and they just accept the problem that they've got, or some choose to fight like you did, and and fight back in the way that you did to reach the heights of winning a gold medal. And mate, not a lot of people can do that. They don't just hand gold medals out. They you have to work so hard for them, and that's what it, I guess for you, it was a sense of the relief, the hard work has finally, I've had an achievement.
Yeah, that's right. That's the relief of it all. I think there was this maybe unknown pressure that was there, and I felt like I'd achieved it, and that's why I felt so relieved by it all.
Absolutely. And then, so you come back from Rio, and then in 2017, you had the honour of delivering the ANZAC Day speech at the Australian War Memorial. What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, that was very special. It was actually quite a difficult task because I've done a little bit of public speaking, and sort of know my story quite well, and I'm able to articulate it very, very well. But to do a speech of that significance, particularly at the Australian War Memorial on ANZAC Day as the national address, it was a very weighty task. There was a lot of sort of pressure. I felt pressure on that one. I wanted to make sure that there's a lot of ceremonies. Anniversaries is the word I'm looking for, not ceremonies. Anniversaries, that go with it. It was the 75th anniversary of Kokoda that year, so I had to make sure that was included. But also the significance of the day. It's the storming of the Gallipoli Beach. It's all these sort of things that. But then also my story. Like, how do I lay that in there without upsetting anyone? And that's the pressures of that speech, and that's why it's really difficult to try and make sure that you are saying the things you need, and also being humble and articulate at the same time. So it is a tricky one, and thankfully Brendan Nelson, the person who asked, and he was the director of the War Memorial at the time, he was able to help me sort of select a few people where I could talk about and stories within from those people and those moments. And then he obviously had an idea about what he wanted me to say when he asked me. So that was something that was very, very helpful. He is a brilliant speaker, and has the ability to do. He's got a photographic memory, so he can say anything, read anything, and then just deliver it verbatim. So it's good to be able to have that reason, that ability. So his knowledge of all things is pretty good. So I tried to draw a bit out of him. So yeah, it was a very special moment, and I was incredibly humbled and honoured to have that honour given to me. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's I can understand the pressures that it's Anzac Day is, well, it's like a sacred religion in Australia, like it's and I can see the pressure that you would have been under. So in that same year, you were also awarded the Order of Australia medal. What does that honour mean for you?
It is a great honour, but it is. I always feel like it was a weird one because my OAM is it was for services to sport. So you win a medal, and I got another medal. It seemed like a weird thing to receive, considering I had like a gold medal around my neck, and that was my achievement. And I think it was to be recognised by the Australian government and the people was something that was special. I think that's the way I think about it. And when I think about all the people that received those medals at the time, there were so many people, and I was lucky enough, obviously, to be in Canberra for ANZAC Day. So I got to go to Government House and get the Governor General of Australia rather than the Governor of the States to give me mine. What's that word? Investiture. I think that's what it's called. And General Cosgrove was the Governor General at the time, and he's got a really good ability to read something and be able to deliver it. And he was able to do like 50 or 30 odd people without looking at his notes and remembering a little story about each person. So a pretty special man as well. I was still in the military at that time, so I had my military uniform on and to go to Government House, and it was a really beautiful day. And like I said, to be honoured by the people of Australia for my feats in Rio and going to the Paralympics was something that I'm very proud of.
Absolutely, and mate, it's well deserved. So congratulations, well done. It's a very it's a great thing that you've achieved. And so going forward, you and Rachel got back together, and in 2019 you got to marry your dream girl, as you've said. How important has Rachel and your family's support been on this journey?
Yeah, I wouldn't be where I am without their support. Particularly Rachel and my family. And I think, I think I've avoided a lot of difficulties with the people that have been around me, and they are integral to that part, and being in my corner and helping me out and helping me sort of navigate the choices of what I've had on offer and the opportunities. And obviously it's not all smooth sailing and winning gold medals and things like that. There's a lot of hard work, and each morning you got to wake up and do the work, and that's how you become a world champion and a gold medalist. And that's in part helping me process and drive each day to be better. And and Rachel and my family has been a part of that. Not to mention my friends as well. They've been a huge part of that as well. It's about the journey, and your friends come along with that. So yeah.
Absolutely, and I was talking to you off air, and I know myself personally, and without my family and friends' support, Curtis, I wouldn't be here today. I just, with my struggles that I've been through, and you're right, it's the journey of, it's the journey and the lessons, the life lessons we learn along the way, and the support of your family and friends. You can achieve anything if you've got the right people around you. I truly believe that.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's talk about when COVID hit and the Paralympics were cancelled. What was keeping you motivated, as there was so much uncertainty if the games would go ahead?
Yeah, it was tricky, but like to me, I was thought, well, I was still going to try and get there anyway. And the uncertainty was something that was completely out of my control, and that was probably the only thing that I was able to push towards and sort of push to the side and keep focusing on my goal, because it was so out of my control. That was the moment where I was like, well, there's nothing I can do other than doing what I know how to do. So I just focused my mind and got the especially the sports team around me, my coaches and stuff, and them being there and supporting me, and being there in the mornings and continuing on with the work and the help and all that, and the drive and the motivation was really key. So that was something that I'm very, I look back on, and the whole COVID situation was such a mess. It still really is, and that's, we're still trying to deal with it. No one alive today had ever lived through well, actually, I could be wrong here, but the Spanish flu, like, that was so long ago, and the technology and the medicine and all these technologies now that we've got, and obviously the ability to travel so easily on an aircraft, which was made it in a global pandemic so fast, and that was something we all had to deal with in our own way. But athletes especially got a really hard time of it all. So that was something that we all were in it together, and that was another thing I remembered, that we needed to be collectively together and work really well and try to push each other along.
Absolutely, and we go forward to 2021 and Tokyo, and let's talk about the fairy tale of winning gold again, and what do these two medals mean to you now?
Yeah, very different situations leading into these games, and being there was just as I remember just before the Olympics started. So the Olympics and Paralympics are held at different times, and they're about 2 weeks apart. And the Olympics was just about to start, and then I started to think, like, man, if the Olympics has a massive outbreak in the athletes' village and all of them get COVID, they'll just cancel the Paralympic Games. Like, they won't even blink, because the Olympics had started. They'll probably run it to its course, but they just didn't. I started to become quite pessimistic about it actually happening. And then once it started and it got a couple of days in, there was only like one or two cases within like the close sort of athletes and coaches and support staff. But then there was all these outsider contractors coming in. They're the ones that were the cases, and that's, the media didn't really report that very well. But you could go on the website and see which nation or what sort of role that COVID case was from, and it was quite sort of thorough. And about 3 or 4 days in, I was like, actually, we might be on here. So I started to get really excited, and obviously optimism started to creep back in. I started to feel like, oh yeah, we actually could be doing something here. And then and then the Olympics happened and been and gone, and I was like, man, like, where next? But what was weird was I was sitting at home on my couch with my dog, and Rachel's at work, and I was watching the opening ceremony of the Paralympic Games while still sitting in Australia, because we weren't allowed in for more than like 5 days prior to your event, or 3 days prior to your event or something. And it was it was a situation where I was like, man, this is going to be pretty crazy once we get there, because it was not much time to get ready. And but yeah, once we got on the plane and got there and felt immersed in the whole village with the rest of the Aussie team, it was a really, really cool feeling. And then lining up in Tokyo on the line, I was so bloody nervous, because I hadn't competed for 2 years internationally. Who knows what what sort of level people are at, what sort of condition everyone's in, and where are they, what sort of things have they learned or worked on in the 2 years. So yeah, it was pretty daunting, and I had a few issues with my my rudders and steering and things like that. The conditions were really odd, because we'd been training for Tokyo in the heat. It was meant to be like 35 degrees and 90% humidity, and that was not the case on race day. It was in the warm-ups, sorry, in the training days prior to. But race day, it was 17 degrees, raining, and it was at real average weather, and quite a bit of like swirly sort of crosswinds and things like that. So it just sort of caught me off guard with my steering and whatnot. So had to work on that, because I didn't make it through to my final, straight through to the final in my kayak, and I really needed to zone in and focus on the things that I was fixing, all the things that I'd made all the mistakes in my heat. And that's what I did, and I executed it perfectly, and I was very, very, very confident leading into my kayak final. I'd done all the work, I'd worked on all my starts, and I'd had a pretty average heat, and then I had a really good semi-final, and I felt really confident, and that was in the same day. So I lined up, and I was ready to go, and I managed to cross the line, and felt so bloody stoked. There was no wave of relief. It was more of a more of a reward. It felt like I'd set the goal. I'd been there, and all these people, and again, so many people. Instead of relief, it was joy, and that's what I expected in Tokyo. So that there was a big sigh of relief there, in a way that I got the feeling I wanted to. And then the next day was the outrigger race, and for my heat in that race, I had a bit of a steering issue, but I still won my heat, which gave me a lot of confidence, because in that heat was a very challenging one. All the top guys were in that race, and I was able to win there. And I then was able to feel confident enough that, okay, if I have the right rhythm here and the right race, I should get it done. And I don't know if everyone saw the races, but I'm not the fastest starter in the world, but I have a very good back end, and that's sort of where my strength lies. And I knew if I was in a boat length of everyone, I could probably claw them back in the second half of the race, and then make it. And that's why and then I managed to get that, and push through, and claim the 2 gold. And again, I was so pumped, because you never know what people are going to pull out of the bag on race day, and it's all a culmination of many different elements. Training, your ability, the support, the conditions, the food, the sleep, all that sort of stuff. And it's a pretty cool feeling when it all comes off. And I had a really amazing race, and I was very very happy with the way in which my team and everyone supported me, and obviously the rest of the Aussie team as well.
Absolutely, and mate, I remember watching it, Curtis, and it was, we're all jumping for joy, mate. It was great to see, and the hard work had paid off for you, and I still can remember just your face, and it was just pure emotion, like, to see the hard work. And I guess for you, and what comes out in the book, is that you're over there, you didn't have any family, so you were on your own, and it was so totally different to how Rio was, to experiencing 2021 and Tokyo. But it was really, in the book, it came out, mate, and you could see it, and it was a great result for you, and fantastic to see. So well done.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was a bit weird with no one in the crowd, but I'm not someone who draws off the energy from the crowd. I'm more of a tunnel vision sort of guy, and focusing on myself and my own race plan, and that's really important, I think, to remember on all things. So only work on the things that you can control, and don't worry about the other stuff.
Absolutely. And so it leads me into how did the book come about, and what was the process in writing the book, and how can people get a copy of the book?
Yeah, so the book, I'd been asked to do a book a few times, and I just felt like I still had much more story to tell and to go, and I wasn't really interested in doing it. And it was something that I felt like I could build on more, and get more, not more story, but more ability to articulate my story, and fill in the gaps. And it's funny, when I was going through the process of writing it, I did it with James Phelps, but I'd always have to call up the boys that were in Afghanistan. Oh, did this happen like this, or did it happen like that? And they're like, no, it happened this way, and this is where this happened then. And I was like, all right. So reconnecting and talking about those moments was really special, to reconnect and talk about it. But at the same time, it was quite cathartic and therapeutic, working through all those different parts of the story in the book, and my timeline as well. So, yeah.
How can people get a copy of the book, Curtis, and where can they get a copy?
Yeah, so the book, we published it with HarperCollins, and it had a little issues, with the COVID, the shipments and all that sort of thing. That made it really difficult to try and get up to Queensland. But I think it's all been rectified now, which has been great. So you can buy it online on Booktopia, or anywhere where you buy your online books. You can get audiobook, Kindles, but also all your department stores, Kmart, Targets, and so on. But also, your main bookstores like Dimmicks and even the little independent ones. So yeah, it's out there, and just get on board and have a read if you enjoyed my story, or I reckon you'll enjoy the book.
Absolutely, mate. I enjoyed reading it, and that's why I wanted to get you on the podcast, because I've followed your story for a long time, and you are an inspiration, mate. And it's a story, guys, that when you hear this podcast, go out and buy Curtis's book. You will not be disappointed. So it's a fantastic read, and I got a lot out of it, mate. So thank you for sharing your story. It's been a journey for you. It's been an absolute journey. And just lastly, looking back now, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self, and would you change anything in your life? And also, what are your plans going forward with Rach into the future?
Yeah, so looking back, I'd probably say you probably need to set more goals, like telling my younger self, because that was something that I only learnt how to do, and realized the importance of them all when I got injured, and it sort of made me think, like, maybe, man, I probably could have been doing a lot more with myself and driving myself a bit better. But that was, it was something that I was then made aware of. So yeah, set more goals and be more thorough in your execution of them. And I don't think I would change too much. Maybe to be honest, I don't know what I'd change. There's so many different variables in life, and that's what makes life and the journey pretty amazing, and the people that come along with you. And I think that's something I don't ever want to take away and change. So yeah, and then for the future, I'm having a year off this year of high performance sport. I wanted to have a bit of a breather after Tokyo. It was an extra an extra year, so 5 years sort of cycle, and I was very much very tired at the end of Tokyo. I think I'm still recovering from it, and I'm slowly getting back on the fitness bandwagon, doing a bit of swimming and doing some other stuff. But that's had me really nice and recharged, ready for the Paris cycle. So that's something that I'm really wanting to pursue and to work towards, and hopefully come away with I don't know, maybe a medal or two, but we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be something that we've got to work on. There's so many, like I said, so many variables, and whatever happens, and I just hope that people can come along and watch, because I think the Paris Games are going to be pretty special. It's going to be a lot of pent up energy for people to travel and be a part and support the movement now. And the Paralympics is growing bigger and better, and we're getting a lot more support, and it can always be more, and it's going to be a special moment. I think the growth and what Channel 7 have helped the Paralympic movement achieve is something that's growing bigger and better every year or every cycle. So I think it's like 4 days until the Winter Olympics kick off, and then like a month until the Winter Paralympics. So it'll be exciting and more sport to watch, which is always good. And but like the future, who knows, mate? Like, I'm doing a bit of study for an aviation management degree, so on the side there, and chip away. And Rachel's being an ICU doctor. We've just moved up to Brisbane late last year for her to start a new role. And so there's lots going on, but we just have to wait and see, I think. So yeah.
I think, mate, just enjoy some family time with, Rach and your mum and dad and your brother and sister and your friends. And for those, when is Paris, Curtis? Is it 2024?
It is, yeah. So it'll be same sort of dates as the Olympics and Paralympics last year. So just in 3 years' time, or 2.5 years' time now. So it's not far away, really, if you think about it. And it makes me wonder, like, man, I should probably get back in the boat, but I'm not. I'm not going to do that anytime soon. Just take my time and do a few fun things with the club, and just be a bit more casual with it, because it is quite hard. I think people don't understand that every day you rock up to training, you're expected to be better than you were the day before, and that really is a burden that you don't realize until you stop, and then you're like, man, like thank God that's over. Like, I'm just just want a breather here and feel like I'm able to do the things that I want to do, and have that extra beer, or stay out late, and or go on holiday, or and be able to go and do things that aren't sort of so demanding on the time, because you need to be better than you were the day before.
Absolutely, and mate, I think it's just you've earned this break. You've earned this break to just enjoy some time, and you're right. It is there's days there where I know myself, I train as well, but not at an Olympic standard. But there's days where you don't want to train, but you still, for me anyway, for my mental health, it is so important that I do train, and exercise is so important for our mental health. And I was up early this morning, Curtis, I went in the pool and smashed out a K, and it just sets you up for the day. Like whether it's just a walk or whatever, throwing a ball or whatever it is, just get out there and do it, and you won't be sorry. I'm certainly not, Curtis. I love it now. I love exercise and
it's just the hardest part's just starting, and then once you start, it's easy after that. So
that's right. So Curtis, your story is one of true grit, determination, never giving up, and one of true resilience, courage, and sacrifice. Thank you for your service to our nation, and thank you for everything that you do. You're an inspiration to us all, and thank you for coming on True Blue History today.
Thanks, mate. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review for the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. And if you feel like supporting us, you can now via our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/True Blue History, or buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/True Blue History, and check out our new website, truebluehistory.com, for more great content.